Well, coming up on today's show, we talk a lot about the Nissan LEAF. The new one's been released. It's called the E+, and yes, you can order it now. But before you do, wait for the details. Plus, on today's show, the Mercedes EQC driven by Jay Leno and some price speculation, which I don't think is right, but we'll go with it. And why Toyota is pushing hybrids above everything else. Well, good morning, good afternoon and good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to EV News Daily. It's Wednesday, the 9th of January, 2019. My name is Martyn Lee. I've been through every EV story that I can find today, and I've picked out the ones I think you need to know about. As always, thank you to myev.com for helping make this show. It's going to be a big year this year for people buying electric cars. There's going to be more records set all around the world, but if you're in North America, you're lucky enough to have myev.com as a resource for buying and selling and learning about EVs as well. Check them out. And welcome to a brand new producer of the podcast. That would be Andy. Well, Andy signed up about 5 minutes before I hit publish on yesterday's show. So in case he's wondering, you didn't mention my name. I just missed out on getting Andy Hall into the podcast and a new member of the Patreon family, new producer. All right, let's start with the Nissan LEAF. In fairness, the new LEAF E+, which is the official name, is going to take up the majority of the discussion that you and I have today about this. It is still the world's best-selling EV, at least it is for now. And so by now, I'm guessing maybe you've seen the news online, or at least maybe a headline or two about the long-awaited Nissan LEAF, the new longer-range variant. In fact, when they launched the 40 kilowatt-hour LEAF all those months ago, over a year ago, they even said at the time, there's a longer-range version coming, which I thought was a weird thing to do. They launched a car amongst a big fanfare and then immediately said, oh, but there's a better one on the way. And I presumed from that they meant 3 months away. We've waited over a year and they finally bring it. They bring it later in 2019 because even though you can order one from today, and we'll come on to that, you certainly won't take delivery of it anytime soon. Well, here's everything that I've been able to dig up for you. There's loads of information about the car out there today. Some of my thoughts based on the first 12 hours of reaction, though. And let's start with what's the same? Pretty much everything that you can see. Exterior, the same. I mean, there's going to be a new badge, some new accents when you open up the charge port. It's going to say E+ inside there. There's a new badge. And then everything on the inside and the outside is pretty much the same. The interior gets a new 8-inch screen, which they are saying is a better quality screen. I know a few people had some reservations about the quality, the kind of cheapness of how the current LEAF 7-inch screen looked. So it's probably going to have more contrast, more responsive if you're swiping it with your finger and stuff. As for how you charge it, though, it's still CHAdeMO, not CCS. It's exactly what you have been used to on every Nissan LEAF that you've seen over the years. Well, first up from InsideEVs, clarity on the name, and also when you can get one. Nissan's E+ is the name of the car, the global name, the E+, lowercase e, in case you're interested. E+ is how they've stylized it, particularly in the US and Canada. LEAF S+, the LEAF SV+, and the LEAF SL+. My brain hurts already. In a global world that we live in now, I wonder when car makers will catch up to just calling it the same thing. Apple don't have different names for their phones, as far as I'm aware, around the world. The iPhone 10 or 10S or 10R is the name of it. And in a global world, a global marketplace, why have we still got automakers calling different specs of the same car different things? But at least in North America, the range is the LEAF S+, the LEAF SV+, and the LEAF SL+. But if you're buying it elsewhere in the world, get used to different names. The market launch is going to be in Japan this month, actually. So in its home market, you can get one. Then sometime in the spring, it'll go to the US first, pricing to be announced closer to the on-sale date, and Europe get it last. Now, that's actually a reverse of what has happened before with some car makers, the US, particularly with the Korean cars, like the Hyundais and the Kias. US getting it last. Going to be the other way round with this one. And so Europe gets it summer 2019 or mid-2019, I believe is the official line. Right, the battery then. 62 kilowatt hours, not the 60 kilowatt hour that more recently it's been called, and certainly not the 64 kilowatt hour that was assumed a year ago when all the tips, the rumours was pointing towards Nissan moving away from their own cells made by a company called AESC. They sold off their battery. Well, that's hopefully the first sale fell through. I won't go into that now. But there's a new buyer. They're selling off their batteries. And so they were onto the world market of getting battery supply contracts as anybody else apart from Tesla would have to do, because nobody else makes their own. So all of the knowledge was that they were using the LG Chem packs that you can find in the Chevrolet Bolt, for instance, and the Korean cars, the Hyundais and the Kias. That might not be the case. Stay with me. Even with the 25% increase in energy density and the energy storage capacity, they've used exactly the same size and configuration of the pack. So they've secured some cells, and then Nissan are making the pack, by the look of it, in order to keep the dimensions exactly the same. That would be my assumption. Moving on to the range, that's now 226 miles, that's 364 kilometres on the EPA range. So 226 versus 151 for the current car that's out there, by the way, which is going to stay on sale. Nissan says this, thanks to the available new 70 kilowatt quick charging system, which will go up to 100 kilowatts at the peak. The 2019 Nissan LEAF E Plus can charge more effectively than ever. Asterisk. I don't like that, and I couldn't find where the asterisk points either. But anyway, it says it charges quicker than ever, asterisk. Based on early testing, the E Plus owners can expect similar charging times on a 100 kilowatt charger as the current owners do on a 50 kilowatt charger, despite being a 55% bigger battery. So just to decode that press release speak, although the battery has got 55% bigger, it'll charge in the same time because it can accept faster charge rates. As for pricing then, well, the base LEAF E Plus is going to start from 4.1 million yen. That's about $38,300 if you just do the straight conversion. In the case of Europe, they've announced 2 limited edition versions. Keep up with me now. There's a new limited edition version of the old car. So the current 40 kilowatt car can still be bought, and now it can also be bought in 3.0, which is a limited edition car, and also there's a limited edition of the new car as well. So the limited edition 3.0, which is what they've called it, of the old car with a smaller battery is 39,900 euros. That can be ordered now for May delivery. The 3.0 limited edition of the bigger battery starts at 45,000 euros, which is, if you do the straight conversion, just over £40,000 for orders in the summer. If you had the same premium, that's about a 14% increase on both the old and the new. If you had that the same in the US, by the way, it's looking like US prices will be around $35,000. Right, so what's this 3.0 limited edition all about then? Well, it means you get a bigger screen, for instance, the 8-inch, not the 7-inch, and you get phone mirroring. They didn't, again, explicitly call it Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. They just said you can connect to your phone. If you've got Apple CarPlay, just say you have. It might be buried in a press release, but in the top line, it just said you can connect to your phone for better sat-nav. It's been hard work today, by the way. This has not been the easiest car launch to report on. The press release also says this. The Nissan LEAF 3.0 limited edition will be available to order from January the 9th, today, in European markets. The limited edition, of which only 5,000 units will be made for Europe. The limited edition will feature the 160 kilowatt high output motor for longer range capabilities. So let me read that to you again and see if you understand it as I understand it. The limited edition, of which 5,000 units will be produced for Europe, will feature the higher output 160 kilowatt motor. So does that mean after they do the first run of 5,000 cars of the 3.0s, I'm getting lost here, that you don't get the 160 kilowatt motor? Or does the 160 kilowatt motor, which is up from 110 on the old car, come with all LEAFs, which have got the bigger battery? They've made it way harder to understand than it really, really should be. Nissan, you have dropped the ball on this. When you read, I beg someone in Nissan PR in the UK, go and read your press release that's come from, I don't know, Nissan Global or something. Maybe it's been translated from like the Japanese team wrote it first. There's so many bits of this that are like, that could have been so much easier to understand. And I'm doing my best here to be a cheerleader for this car. Well, let's move on to where the battery comes from. And I was forwarded a Forbes article today from Ryan Maughan. Now, Ryan Maughan is the man behind Avid Technology, a former guest on this show. And there's nothing that Ryan doesn't know about EVs because, well, his company makes many of the bits that you'll find inside cars, but the unbranded bits inside Now, he sent me the Forbes article, which says this: the battery is actually the same old cells that have been supplied by AESC, or rather, they're new cells, but the same old company, AESC, which is Nissan's in-house battery division. They're in the process of selling that off at the moment to a company called Envision. But, like all versions of the Leaf so far, using those packs, using those cells for the pack, which are of slightly higher density for this new version, not LG Chem, no liquid active thermal management, which is the kind of gold standard of how you keep your battery in the best condition in freezing temperatures and also in hot climates. I mean, here in the UK, pretty temperate climate, we don't really struggle with those battery issues as much, but some people have had rapid gate. Like all previous versions of the Leaf, it's air-cooled. And again, after 12 months of the EV community online talking about rapid gate, about the frustrations of not being able to charge, even on a 50 kilowatt charging car. Take off a little bit for those losses in charging. Even if you then charge at 45 kilowatts, you'd be happy enough. But it's when you get to the battery so hot that it's throttling it at 18, 19, 20 that you think, this is ridiculous, half the speed that I paid for, which is why buyers got upset with Nissan without properly communicating that. After all of that, you think at some point they would have had clarity on the battery. The whole thing has been ignored. I've looked so hard today for any kind of explanation from Nissan on this, but they just don't want to engage in any talk online, replying to people on Twitter, journalists that have been asking the question. Up until now, they have had thermal management is just managing the temperatures, and they've relied on passive thermal management, apart from the van they make, which is called the ENV200, that has the fans blowing across it, hot air or cold air. As far as I know, we think they're going to be blowing hot air or cool air either through the pack, which Ryan from Avid points out is really hard because you've got to filter the air, and it's like blowing them amongst the cells. If any particles got in there that could puncture a cell, I mean, that would be a disaster. So if you're going to blow it through the pack, it has to be filtered air. If you're going to blow it just over the outside of the battery pack, are we going to see those rapid gate issues that we've seen so far? Well, we'll find out when the car goes into the market and people start testing them. But I thought Nissan would have addressed it to either say, this is what we've done, or just don't worry about it, or, hey, we heard the buyers that took a risk with our 40 car. We heard you, we listened, we appreciate your custom, we're trying to do better. And so we hope that that's all been sorted, and that really was maybe just a BMS thing. Now, the one thing that I will add to you today, we'll wrap up on this, I've gone really big on this, it's a really important car. It's one of the most important car launches that we'll have this year. That they went, in one of the articles I read, they went really big on making a point of, this is our BMS, battery management system. This is the Nissan BMS. We've coded this. Without explicitly saying we weren't using our own up until now, I do wonder whether all of the problems with Rapid Gate wasn't Nissan's, but it was that they were using a BMS or a set of specifications by their battery company, AESC, which was overly cautious and throttled the battery. And you could charge faster with more heat, and it won't hurt the batteries, and maybe they've worked that out. We really hope we work it out. We really want to see Nissan do very well with this car, and good luck to anybody that's got their eye on buying it. Thank you for bearing with me on that. It's been a big news day for the Leaf, and I'd love to get your comments on that. You can email me, hello@evnewsdaily.com. Email me personally, your thoughts, either private or if you want me to read them out. And if you want to make your thoughts public, do that on the YouTube comments, because we do put the audio of this show on YouTube as well. Right, let's whiz through a few more stories that are really important to get to today. First of all, Mini's first electric car is going to be the industry's first electric hot hatch, according to sources. Engineering sources in Germany have been talking to Mark Tishaw for Autocar. Rather than the sole focus being on economy, eking out range, as some EVs do, Mini wants it all to be about performance. To that end, the model is going to be badged the Cooper, because Mini Cooper is the performance badge, the Cooper SE. Unveiled later this year, made in Oxford, and it will reflect the performance hierarchy in the Mini range. The BMW, obviously they're part of BMW Group, the i3S, has a 181 brake horsepower motor. That's probably the most likely one to go inside the Mini. And then the drivetrain is not their latest version of their technology. It's not the 5th generation BMW technology, which is a real shame. So they'll be launching the Mini into the market with kind of outdated technology. It won't be at the bleeding edge, the cutting edge, and it will be a premium car as well. This won't be a £30,000 car if I were to put my my speculating shoes on. Well, moving on to a big survey that was done by the legendary YouTube channel Fully Charged with Robert Llewellyn. Almost 9 out of 10 EV owners say they would never, ever go back to driving a car powered by petrol or diesel in their new survey. According to Motor1.com, a survey by the YouTube channel Fully Charged found that 88% of plug-in car drivers said they would definitely not switch back to a fossil fuel car after having driven an EV. 7% of those quizzed say that they are not sure whether they would go back to fossil cars. And the remaining 5% say that they would consider driving a fossil car once again. However, just under a quarter of their audience, 24%, said they currently owned an electric car. So that is the vast majority, 54% driving petrol, diesel being driven by 35% of their viewers, the vast majority of fully charged viewers. And I know from this podcast of my listeners as well, the majority are EV curious people who have, one eye on the future and which car to buy in the future. They want to educate themselves, want to learn about it now. The majority of people don't already own electric cars, and 7,700 people took part in that survey. So that's a pretty decent number. Couple of stories on the Mercedes EQC. Until it actually makes its debut in the market, the Mercedes-Benz EQC has been getting a Jay Leno treatment. Now, Jay Leno's Garage is one of the great YouTube channels out there. And according to Drive Mag, Jay Leno drove the EQC 400 4MATIC, to give it its full name, in prototype guise, and got a bit more background on the EV. He spoke to Bastian Schult. He is the powertrain testing engineer for Mercedes-Benz, and he took him for a ride. You might already know that the EQC relies on an 80 kilowatt-hour battery pack, doing 280 miles on a single charge. Power coming from 2 electric motors with 300 kilowatts of power from those 2 motors. About 280 miles. I don't know whether that's on EPA range or WLTP, whether that's real world. I mean, it's in the right ballpark, isn't it? As long as it can charge quickly. 80 kilowatt-hour battery pack is not the biggest in the world, but as long as you can charge quickly, as long as it's an efficient vehicle, then 280 miles is kind of in the ballpark for the price you'll be paying. But what price will you be paying? Well, meanwhile, the new Mercedes EQC, which is aimed at, you would argue, the Jaguar I-Pace buyer, the Audi e-tron buyer, maybe even the sort of base spec Tesla Model X buyer, it could cost less than £50,000 when it arrives in the UK, speculates carsuk.net. Let me tell you how they got to that speculation. Jay Leno's video, when he was asking the Mercedes man how much the EQC would cost in the US, he didn't answer that, and they often don't have specific pricing until much nearer the time of launch. But he did say that in Europe, it'll cost about the same is what he said, about the same as the Mercedes GLC 43. Now, if you look up the price specs, the Mercedes GLC 43 has a list price here in the UK of £49,000, but that puts it in the £50,000 ballpark, even if you take off the free grant that we get here in the UK, even if he was doing that, which is kind of doubtful that he thought about it to that level of detail. It'd be £53,000, £53,500. This is a big SUV with 400 horsepower and 0 to 60 in 5 seconds, 250-ish miles real-world range, probably. That would be an incredible price for a premium car. Mercedes-Benz make beautiful cars, and I know that nobody has £50,000 lying around under the sofa unless you've done very well for yourself. So, of course, it is a lot of money. But equally, it's not that much money in the grand scheme of what its competitor cars will sell. At £50,000, it would be a very compelling price for company car buyers who can afford that bracket of car. The people who could be buying the Audi e-tron. Let's talk about that. The Audi e-tron, according to Mark Kane at InsideEVs, posted a story today. Several hundred cars have been registered in the first few markets that it's going to be sold. I imagine that's selling them to dealers, then the dealers register them so that people can have a look around the e-tron. I've not seen one in person myself, but it turns out that customer deliveries won't be happening this month, at least in their home market of Germany, according to the auto analyst Matthias Schmidt, who I love to follow on Twitter. The first customers in Germany are going to get the e-tron in February. The Audi has been delayed a little bit, its launch, because of a software issue. They say that's all sorted out now, but if they do delay that launch late into February, it's going to be overtaken quite easily by the Tesla Model 3, which should hit the market at around the same time in left-hand drive form. And the final story today is an interview with Toyota. Don't tell Toyota that its once very popular soft hybrid vehicle is losing its appeal, says CNBC. The automaker's planning to leverage its current dominance in soft hybrids as it grows the number of hybrid vehicles in the US and around the world. Well, Bob Carter is the Exec VP of Sales for Toyota North America, and he said this, and I quote, "We are working on an entire portfolio of hybrids, which we've been selling since 1997. Plug-in hybrids, full battery electric vehicles, and fuel cell vehicles. But those vehicles represent 9% of our sales in 2018. We've set a goal for that to be 15% of our sales next year in 2020. But the priority is for them, hybrid and soft hybrid cars. So you've got to have fossil fuels being put into it to make the vehicle work. So it won't have a plug. So yes, it's got some clever technology in it, but I'm thinking of starting a campaign of, unless a vehicle's got a plug, you can't call it an EV. It's not an electric vehicle because you can't put electricity into it. The same goes, by the way, for the e-power technology, very big in Japan, which is with Nissan, which is using engines as generators. So they've got a small battery pack of a couple of kilowatt hours that drives the wheel. So it's running on an electric motor, but there's no plug. I mean, it won't go forward until you put dinosaurs into it. And so I don't think they should be called EVs. I think we need some clarity in 2019. Well, thank you very much for listening today. And if the Nissan LEAF isn't up your street, then you did well to get through today's podcast. But I think it's a really important car, and I really want to see Nissan do well with this car. Obviously, I have my reservations, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Give me your feedback, and give me your feedback on our question of the week. Thanks to myev.com. They've set us a brand new question of the week. Keep your comments coming in on YouTube, on Facebook, and email. If an ICE driver, if a fossil driver were to walk over to you, they know that you're into EVs, and they said to you, what's the one thing I should know about electric cars then? What should you tell them? Let me know. Give me your feedback. Thank you very much to 156 patrons of this podcast. And thank you very much for everyone who contributes and keeps this show going and gets it in more places than ever before. It's now on SoundCloud as well, it's a small monthly fee that they charge, but couldn't do it without Patreon. So thank you very much. Hopefully, if you love getting your audio from SoundCloud, we just made it easier for you to get that audio from there as well. If you want to check out what it's all about, patreon.com, patreon.com/EV News Daily. And just as I did earlier today with Andy Hall, I'd love to be reading out your name on tomorrow's show. Thank you very much to our premium partners, Phil Roberts from Electric Future, electricmotoring.net if you are looking for Tesla hire in the Chicago area, and Brad Crosby as well. Well, there are 351 previous episodes of the podcast online for you to download and listen to for free. You can subscribe on any podcast channel and on YouTube as well to get the show first and free and automatically. In the meantime, catch up on the socials. Let me know your thoughts on anything in today's show by searching EV News Daily. Have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you tomorrow.